then, still, being a local tourist is never a bad idea. It's usually safe, fun, and it can expand your perspective. For example, just inland of Moruga Beach, you can visit those 3 peaks that make up the Trinity Hills, if not for anything else, but because of the important and controversial role they played in our history. Back on July 31st, 1498, that brave, heroic explorer and adventurer Christopher Columbus was on his 3rd daring voyage to the still largely unknown New World. Unfortunately, just 6 weeks in, his crewmen were on the verge of mutiny, being naturally displeased that they had yet to see any new land after weeks at sea. It was at this fateful moment Columbus spied 3 peaks on the horizon. Providence had intervened, saving both himself and his reputation. He disembarked just long enough on the shore to thank God for his divine intercession, and christened the land in honor of the Holy Trinity, hence the name Trinidad. This historic event would be celebrated in a national holiday called Discovery Day, where it would be remembered in an annual reenactment in the southern village of Grand-Chimay. There's only one problem. He wasn't the person who really discovered Trinidad. It was actually a servant of his, a sailor called Alonso Perez, who was the first to catch sight of the 3 peaks in the distance. Columbus himself didn't even set foot on land at first, or perhaps ever, because at the time he had an attack of gout and was unable to walk just right then. And furthermore, some historians, such as the great author Michael Anthony, have questioned whether it's even possible to see the hills from the offshore position cited in Columbus's journal. It has also been historically documented that Columbus was going to name the first new land. He sighted on his 3rd voyage after the Holy Trinity anyway, after visiting a church shortly before going to sea. Now, if all this is true, why did his story of the sighting of the 3 peaks persist for so long? It's all due to mythology. Myths are invented stories that seek to answer important questions about a culture. And by offering answers to these profound questions, it can justify a nation-state's sovereignty and reinforce its values. For example, Hercules, one of the greatest champions of the Greco-Roman world, possessed great strength, which represented the power and masculinity of the empire's military. And mythology isn't just an antiquated social construct of ancient civilizations. It persists today. For example, the myth of the American Western perpetuates an image of the cowboy as a steely, tough survivor, representing their prioritization of qualities of determination and resourcefulness. Similarly, the story of the sighting of the 3 hills suggests an almost divine intervention and approval of the European rule to which we were once subject to. As it turns out, there are many other myths associated with Christopher Columbus, which have persisted for centuries. First of all, contrary to popular belief, he wasn't so much the enlightened science-based explorer that wanted to prove the earth wasn't flat. Most educated people at the time knew this to be a fact. He was more of a 15th century businessman. But the problem was, Portuguese tradesmen already dominated the sea routes along the African coastline. At this time, this was the easiest way known to go east. And for Columbus, an entrepreneur from Genoa, Italy, opportunities to chisel in were limited. So then, he came up with the brilliant idea to go the other way around. That is, straight across the Atlantic Ocean to the shores of India and China. To fund this expedition, he appealed to Europe's royalty, but was rejected by most, who simply didn't believe his exaggeration on how short the voyage would be. However, King Ferdinand of Aragon and Queen Isabella of Castile in Spain, in direct competition with Portugal, decided to take the risk, based on his embellishment of the estimate of the circumference of the Earth. His miscalculations regarding the circumference of the Earth may have been an honest mistake. There, recorded in his journal, are many other exaggerations and outright lies that were intentionally used to influence his patrons. For example, he claimed that there were so many gold mines in the newly discovered Caribbean island of Hispaniola that the people living there were quite rich indeed. The truth was, there was very little, if any, gold on the island itself. Yet, he enslaved and brutalized many of the people who lived there. Yet, in many circles, Christopher Columbus is still considered one of the greatest heroes in history. This illustrates perhaps the chief problem with mythology. That is, it's a form of dehistoricization. Myths provide invaders, colonizers, and subjugators a persuasive, almost religious justification for their rule over who they oppress. For example, the American West dehumanized and vilified Native American peoples, when the truth was, they were the victims of cruelty and unwarranted slaughter. Now, this being the case, should we still celebrate Discovery Day as a national holiday? Perhaps, yes, but maybe we should be celebrating the true discoverers of Trinidad and Tobago, who, thousands of years ago, first left the South American mainland in search of new lands, not for gold or power, but for the benefit of their families and way of life.